Hey, how's it going guys? It's Nate here. And Skyrim is a land of many things, stories, places, people, and mysteries. Indeed, it's that last one that often drives our curiosity the furthest. The Elder Scrolls V is peppered with a plethora of unanswered questions and unexplained phenomenons that we yearn to figure out. But no matter how hard we all try, we just can't seem to quite get them. So today we'll be diving right into 5 more spooky mysteries in The Elder Scrolls V Skyrim. Starting off, Olaf One-Eye was the legendary Jarl of Whiterun and High King of Skyrim from 420 to 452 of the First Era. He's known for constructing Dragon's Reach and trapping the Dova Numinex inside of it. We later used the tools he built in Dragon's Reach for a very similar purpose in the main questline. Olaf also managed to conquer the Reach in Skyrim's name, and was all around a heroic and great figure. Or was he? You see, while today most Nords revere Olaf as a godlike man, during his reign, there was one critic that challenged all of his accomplishments. A troublesome bard by the name of Svafnir wrote a number of songs and hymns critical of Olaf, calling him a fraud and a trickster, arguing that he never really defeated a dragon, but instead bribed Numinex, and overall really just rained on the king's parade. In response, King Olaf had Svafnir arrested and destroyed all copies of his work. As mentioned, while most of Skyrim today has a pretty high opinion of One-Eye, as a result of his treatment towards a fellow musician, the Bard's College of Solitude hates him. Like, they have a seething dislike of this man. In fact, they despise the king so much that every year the college hosts a festival where a statue of him is constructed in his name and then burned to the ground. If you decide to join the bards, they'll send you on a quest to recover an ancient, undestroyed copy of one of Svafnir's poems critical of Olaf at its tomb in Dead Man's Respite. Here we'll face off against a drogrified Olaf One-Eye, and have a little help from Svafnir's ghost, as we make our way through the dungeon and find the poem. So that seems to settle the debate, right? Svafnir's spirit was cool and helpful, and Olaf was an undead Draugr who tried to kill us, so the bard was probably telling the truth. And Olaf must have been evil, right? Well, not so fast. Because in Sovngarde's Hall of Valor, where the spirits of many an honorable Nord can be found, we can meet none other than the essence of High King Olaf One-Eye. When spoken to, if you've completed the Bard's College questline, the man's spirit will mention Svafnir, and surprisingly speak very highly of him, calling the Bard an honest enemy.
You freed Svafnir, a fool of a poet, but an honest enemy who has earned my respect. Sadly, he's now lost in the soul-snaring mist. Defeat Alduin, and his doom avert. I hope to greet him in this hall as a friend.
That's a little strange. Didn't you literally arrest him for lying about you? On top of all of this, because stuff's not confusing enough, Svafnir can also be met in Sovngarde, wandering the mist, though he doesn't have any dialogue. So what's the deal here? Was Olaf an evil, corrupt man who achieved little and abused political opponents? If so, how did he make it into Sovngarde? But if he wasn't, why does he call Svafnir honest? And how would that bard also have gotten into Sovngarde if all he did was lie? Hero or villain, I suppose we'll never know the truth behind Olaf One-Eye. Perhaps it lies somewhere in the middle. Next on our list, we journey to the lost region of the Forgotten Vale. A once bustling snow-elven metropolis, now little more than a depleted, icy valley, inhabited by hordes of angry Falmer. The area is home to a wealth of curiosities and sites of intrigue. But perhaps the strangest scene one can come across here can be found underneath the frozen lake that the Drain Vitality word wall sits atop of. Here on the north side, beneath the ice and water, resting on the seabed, is a massive pile of human, or elven, bones. Something to the tune of 12 people's remains lie here in this watery grave. Of course, begging the question, why? Amongst all this calcium are a number of satchels, implying that these skeletons don't belong to the local Falmer, as they don't use satchels. Instead, those that died here were probably of a more civilized species, either ancient snow elves or recent human explorers. No matter, I think we can all agree that these bones not belonging to Falmer makes it even weirder. Now, this area isn't exactly the only of its kind in the Vale. Bones and bodies of the departed litter this snowy land, and there's evidence of some major conflict having occurred here long before your arrival in pretty much every direction. But this place is by far the largest concentration of remains. So, again, what happened? Was this lake a place that bodies were dumped after some battle? Was there possibly some mass execution staged here before the lake actually came into being? Who are these dead folks anyway, and who took their lives? And why? I find these types of mysteries to be my favorites, yet also the ones that I find the most frustrating, because we know just so little. At least with other ones, like mysteries concerning King Olaf One-Eye, we had a lot of background information and supplemental stuff to build theories off of. Here, there's nothing but bones. Though something tells me Bethesda left us with little on purpose. Coming in at number 3, who is Amaund Motier? Okay, well, that question alone isn't a very hard one. He's the shady Breton man who offers the player and Dark Brotherhood the ultimate contract to assassinate Emperor Titus Mede II. But more specifically, what's this man's background and what are his motivations for wanting the ruler of Tamriel dead? Well, after first meeting Amaund, one can simply ask him these questions, but he won't offer very straight answers. If interrogated about his own background, he'll straight up refuse to tell you anything, instead demanding his privacy.
I performed the Black Sacrament, contacted you people, because I thought you guaranteed discretion. Is this no longer so?
We can also question Mr. Motier about why he wants Titus Mede dead, and he'll reveal a bit more, but still be unwilling to share details.
In the year 3E41, Emperor Pelagius Septim was murdered in the Temple of the One in the Imperial City, cut down by a Dark Brotherhood assassin. His killing ushered in, shall we say, a necessary change in Imperial policy. There are those now who wish for a similar change. I am sorry, but that's all I'm at liberty to say.
This seems to suggest that Amaund is involved in a much larger, grand conspiracy, rather than just acting out alone. But we'll circle back to this statement in a moment. Shortly after first meeting us and offering the contract, Amaund will give the player a strange amulet as a sort of advanced payment to show that he's serious. Later on in the questline, Astrid will have the Dovahkiin take that piece of jewelry to Delvin Mallory of the Thieves Guild and have it appraised and inspected. Delvin will state that this is no ordinary necklace, but what Motier gave us was an amulet of the Elder Council, and it's worth a fortune. The Elder Council is of course the body of Imperial government that manages the Empire's day-to-day affairs, and advises the Emperor on policy. Delvin and Astrid reason that Amaund himself must have a seat on the Imperial Council, and have something to gain by killing the Emperor. But that's never really confirmed. It could be possible that he just stole the amulet, or it was given to him by someone else in on the plot. All of this gets even weirder and more mysterious when we consider that the Motier family actually has a long history with the Dark Brotherhood. In the Elder Scrolls IV Oblivion, which of course takes place 2 centuries before Skyrim, the Dark Brotherhood is hired by a Breton named Francois Motier to help him assassinate a debt collector. And in the Elder Scrolls Online, which occurs 8 centuries before Oblivion and 1,000 years before Skyrim, we can meet a female Brotherhood Breton member, named Maribel Motier. She tells us her family is rich and powerful, though she left that all behind to join with the Dark Brotherhood. So even a millennium prior to the events of TES 5, the Motier family was an insanely powerful one. The question is, with all this wealth and luxury, what does Amaund have to gain from the death of the Emperor? He states it'll result in a favorable change in policy, but what does that even mean? Is there some sort of tax reform he's after or something? At the end of the quest line, when you inform Motier that Titus Mede is finally dead, he'll say that you, quote, may not realize it, but have served the Empire in ways you can't imagine.
My friend, you may not realize it, but you have served the Empire, indeed all of Tamriel, in ways you cannot possibly imagine.
So, clearly the Breton at least believes that his cause is just, and he's doing this for the good of his country. Some have suggested that perhaps the conspirators want to restart a war with the Aldmeri Dominion, that they're unhappy with the White Gold Concordat, and want a new leader to lead this fight. Not tremendously unlike the Stormcloaks. There's even another theory that the Emperor used Modier to call the hit on himself, but that's a whole nother story. Whatever this man's motivations are, only he knows, and he's just not telling us. For 4th spot, Stalhrim is a strange, ice-like material introduced to Skyrim with the Dragonborn DLC, though it was also featured prominently in Morrowind's Blood Moon expansion as well. It's used as the base for a powerful class of weapons and armor, though the lore behind this element is a lot more unique than simple stuff like iron or steel. According to some dialogue we can have with the Skull tribes, Stalhrim was used by the ancient Nords of the island as a means of encasing and preserving their dead. But no one today really knows what Stalhrim is, or how those ancient Nords got a hold of it. Is the ice a natural resource? Did they make it somehow? The answer to that question is long lost. This is why the only way to actually obtain Stalhrim is through mining it out of coffins and sarcophaguses in ruins. The intricacies of this frozen water don't start there, however, as it's also extremely difficult to forge and work. The only people who still remember how to temper Stalhrim are the Skull. But, as mentioned, when forged properly, the material creates some of the most powerful equipment in the game. Evidently, the items this stuff can create are so valuable that even the Thalmor have taken an interest. And during the quest, A New Source of Stalhrim, you'll have to rescue a Skull blacksmith from Dominion agents who've kidnapped the man and want him to reveal how he forges the stuff. Thankfully, you can throw a bit of a wrench into this little plan of theirs. And in gratitude, afterwards the rescued blacksmith will teach you how to craft Stalhrim weapons and armor. Though, remarkably, it still requires that the player have unlocked the Ebony smithing skill. This is especially noteworthy, as Ebony, at least as far as the Elder Scrolls universe is concerned, is the fossilized blood of Lorkhan, one of the universe's most significant gods. So, considering knowledge of how to work Ebony is required to work Stalhrim, there could be some relationship between the two. Maybe the enchanted ice is the fossilized blood of another god, or maybe that's Lorkhan's fossilized tears or something. Alas, whatever the case is, the secrets of what this material truly is seem to have died off with the ancient Nords. And finally, last on our list, we journey back to mainland Skyrim, specifically the Whiterun Hold, to ask, what is the Sleeping Tree, and how did it get here? The Sleeping Tree is a mysterious, tree that sits in an odd liquid west of Fort Greymore. The area is well protected by some giants and their loyal mammoths, and on your map, the location is referred to as Sleeping Tree Camp. The tree alone is weird enough, but nosy players will quickly find there's more to this place than just some interesting sights to see, as not too far away from the pond is a cave, and inside of it, the body of an orc named Ulag lays dead, smashed next to the giant that did the smashing. In Ulag's inventory will be a few unique potions called Sleeping Tree Sap, as well as a letter from Isolde, one of Whiterun's merchants, requesting that Ulag get her more of the sap so she can sell it to Khajiit merchant caravans, promising the orc a cut of the profits. So, evidently, this tree's sap has some special properties, and is also fetching a pretty penny on some black markets. If you decide to confront Isolde after discovering Ulag's body and show her the letter, she'll quickly admit to her whole scheme, confessing that she's been able to sell the tree's sap at a very nice price amongst, shall we say, adventurous people. But now with her old supplier dead, she kinda needs a new one. So Isolde will offer to pay the player for every bottle of the sap you can bring her. And that's pretty much where this mini-quest ends. But so much is left unexplained. How did this tree get here, and what exactly is it? Thankfully, we can ask Isolde those very questions. She's unsure herself, unfortunately, though here is her response.
How the tree came to grow there is a bit of a mystery. Some say that when Vardenfell erupted, a piece was blown to the middle of Skyrim and from the crater grew the tree. I've also heard that it was a spore that fell from an island floating in the sky, but that just sounds like nonsense. All I know is that the sap makes you feel as healthy as a cave troll, but slow as a drunk horker, and that it fetches good coin.
So, Ysolda seems to acknowledge two distinct possibilities. One is that the tree grew out of some ashes from the eruption of the Red Mountain, which were carried over to Skyrim, and the other is that it was a spore that fell off of a floating island? That sounds ridiculous, and Ysolda dismisses it as nonsense, and she's right to do so. Or is she? Believe it or not, a giant floating island has actually existed in the Elder Scrolls universe. It's not a topic featured prominently in any of the games. However, it's actually the subject of the real-life novels The Infernal City and Lord of Souls. Strictly speaking, these books are only technically based on the Elder Scrolls. Their canon status is a little confusing, as they weren't written by Todd Howard or the writers of the Elder Scrolls. But they were still produced with Bethesda's blessing, and there was likely a lot of internal communication and advising, making the books exist in this weird sort of semi-canon that we're kind of unsure of. Anyway, the two titles tell the tale of Umbriel, a floating island with an insatiable hunger for souls that essentially just hovered around Tamriel killing people for a while. There's a huge amount of lore and backstory to this place that we don't really have the time to explore all of today. I mean, it's literally the principal subject of 2 books. However, here are the spark notes that you need for the context of this video. On Umbriel, there were a bunch of hist trees. Hist trees are a race of sentient, godlike plants that once could be found all over Tamriel, but today are pretty much exclusive to Argonia, where they sort of govern the Argonians. I know, it's weird. Trees in charge of people, stay with me. Hist trees are also said to produce a special sap, that when consumed, usually by Argonians, result in hallucinations and changes to growth. So, given what we know about Umbriel and hist trees and the fact that Umbriel carried them, Ysolda's suggestion that perhaps the sleeping tree grew from a spore that fell off a floating island isn't all that crazy. It could be one of the last hist trees not in Blackmarsh. This theory makes even more sense when you factor in the giant camp that spread around it. Could the tree be intentionally controlling and using the giants as a form of protection? If it's a hist, then definitely. I suppose ultimately, we probably won't ever find out what the deal here is for sure. But the floating island theory, despite as crazy as it initially sounds, actually seems to be the most plausible. Suffice it to say, I don't think I'm going to be drinking any of that sap myself anytime soon. And with that, we are going to wrap up 5 more unsettling mysteries you may have missed in The Elder Scrolls V Skyrim Part 9. Thanks for stopping by, everyone. Which of the unexplained happenings and phenomenon that we explored today did you find to be the most fascinating or intriguing? What are your own theories behind some of what's going on here? Leave a comment down below. As always, like ratings are very much appreciated. Feel free to cyberstalk me on Twitter, and hope to catch you all in my next video. Peace out, everybody.